Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative, and you may be looking at my desktop here going, none of these match. When I was growing up, there was a show I watched, Sesame Street, and for any of you who are my age, you will know what Sesame Street is, and I'm not even sure if there's still a version of it on the air anymore, but there used to be something that went along the lines of one of these things doesn't match, one of these things doesn't belong. And here I am to tell you that none of these match. And they're all different. There's a reason for that, but they're also, so we can have a little bit of fun. I have a variety of different water-based products, and someone has been asking me about, I'm trying to find the front of that label, what works the best in the mix to mold, and I guess one could say in the resincrete by Jdiction. What I'm going to do today is we are going to test these 4 products. This first one, water-based, I got this off of Temu. It's yellow. They're all yellow. I guess I don't need to tell you that. You'll know that by the coloring. This is the Jdiction resincrete pigment. This is the mixed mold pigment ink, and this is stamping ink by Stampin Up. I was trying to find in my selection of colors a color that I had in all of them, and the yellow was the closest I have. So because they're different companies, their yellows are slightly different. And you'll notice that like this looks a lot darker. Some of these are highly pigmented. We're going to see which colors the mix to mold the best. I've had some people say that, you know, they're not really fussy on the pigment ink by mix to mold, that it's not doing as good of a job. We're going to find out today sort of what is the best with using this color. As I said, I didn't want to pull out 4 different colors because I didn't think that would give us a true look at what it can do. So we're going to use one color. We're going to do these each individually. I'm not going to mix them all up and then pour them. I'm going to do them one at a time. I have my powders all lined up. I have my water all lined up. I have a little bit of extra water should I need it. 20 grams of the powder, and I have 7 mils for each of the water. I know it should be 6, but I'm not worried about 1 mil of water. And like I say, we're just going to do these one right after the other, and we're going to let them set and then pull them out and see which one we think is the best, which one has, you know, done the best job, I guess, so that you can make a decision for yourself as to what do you want to use. And you may already have a product that you're using that you're completely satisfied with, and that's totally cool. But for those of you who have been asking about it, I thought, well, I don't mind testing. That's sort of part of what I do, and it helps me. And if I'm really smart and I come up with a really solid answer, I really need to write that down in my notebook. It's funny, I go back and look for measurements on how much any piece can hold, and yeah, I think about it at the time, but I don't do anything about it. Let's start with our water-based pigment, yellow, from Temu. And I got, I think there were 10 different colors, 10 or 12, not sure anymore, but we're going to see. So we'll mix it up. I'm just going to do now. The important thing will be, right, to put in front of each piece that I do what pigment I'm using, because it's not going to be helpful if I don't do that. So we'll start with the mouse ears first. So I will just sort of place these all off to the side. The bell that we've got here and the snowman, these are silicone molds I have made. And I'm hoping to do an actual video where I make something with silicone. I'm working right now. I want to make a square planter box. So I've got sort of the pieces. Now I just got to figure out how I'm all going to pull it together. But that's another video. Another video, another. Okay, the other thing I want to point out is I am not mixing my color in my water. I'm going to mix my product together, and then I'm going to very carefully and to the best of my ability only put so many drops in each. I'm going to say I'm going to do 5, and I want to do that across the board with all of them just to make this fair. So let's get mixing and let's pour and let's see what happens. Okay. Hopefully this will be a good video and give you some insight to product you may want to use yourself moving forward. And if there's something that isn't mentioned here that you're using but you find it works really well, please comment below. I know there are some people who are going through the comments and, you know, commenting on comments who will appreciate it. Okay, so I said 5, so let's do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I get an extra drop in there, so be it. And we'll mix it up. And I don't know if these molds will hold 20 or not. I just did 20, so I had again, it was to give it an even shake. So everything was the same. And yeah, just kind of stir this a couple more times to make sure it's fully stirred, and let's pour. Now this one's coming out looking like an egg color. I probably have way too much of this stuff, don't I? I do. Okay, get over my ears, So I'm going to... I got sidetracked there for a minute. My husband just got home unexpected for his day. It's over now. Okay, I had some leftover of the yellow here, so I've got a mold off to the side. I'm just going to throw any extra I've got into that. Next, we will do the resincrete pigment. So pour that in there, mix it up, and I have also, just to make sure you're aware, I have shaken all of the bottles. I had to shake the mix to mold one a little bit more. The ball or balls that they put in those to help mix it up was stuck, so I had to give it a really good shake to loosen that up. So that I did shake them all very well, so you're not thinking that, okay, so one pigment's getting a little bit more attention than another. That's not the case either. I want to make this as fair as possible for you. So now we'll do 5 drops of this. Oops, 2, 3, 4. Some of these get away from you. Okay, so this is the resincrete. It's interesting, I had a little bit of dust in that mouse ear one. Okay. I'll mix it up. So what creative endeavors are you guys getting up to today? Have you been watching other people's videos and getting ideas or inspiration on things that you can do that perhaps I haven't covered? It's interesting for me because I'm spending so much time now building my own videos and whatnot. I'm not spending as much time actually watching videos, which I find interesting. I didn't think I'd get to that point, but it's sort of like I'm spending, yeah, I've got so much going on with my own videos that I'm not spending as much time watching other videos. I do still watch because I like, you know, watching what other people are doing, you know, sort of if they've, you know, got things they've tried out and what can I learn from other people, which I think is great. I think there's nothing wrong with spending some time learning from other people. Okay, so that's number 2 done, and it's the shading I'm noticing on this one is just slightly lighter and more of a yellowish, and this has got I'd say maybe a bit of an orange to it, but that's neither here nor there. Let's do the mix to mold next. And I have no idea how much the snowman and the bell take. It's been a while since I've done these guys. Just put that over there, and I'll just put this over here because I want you to be able to see. All right. So I still have to learn with the editing program that I'm using how to get rid of dead air space in my videos, and I still haven't taken the time to figure that out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you weren't in shot for that, I think you were you in shot? Sort of. Okay, so let's mix this one up. This one has, as I'm noticing, I've never compared before, so this is kind of cool for me. This one's got more of a neon tinge to it than I'd say yellow, and it's definitely not brightening up as much as the other ones have. That's for sure. Will it come out brighter as it sets? I don't know, but yes, this is very pale in comparison to those other ones. Very, very pale. It almost looks, yeah, I don't even know what to call this. I can't even call it beige. Okay, so we'll just throw it the little bit that's left in that and this one over here I'm going to have to do something with. So this one and this mold isn't level at all. Not at all. Okay. So that definitely, for 5 drops, is not very yellow. Okay, let's put that one there. Our last one is our Stampin' Up. And I think that one is going to, as I say, those are extremely pigmented. So if you were going to use those, then again, do drop by drop, only because it is extremely pigmented, and it all depends on how bright you want your pieces to be. I could see with the mix to mold adding a lot more to it to get a yellow. And this one, I think, yeah, I have to be careful with this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah. And now this one, even with 5, it's not as dark as the other 2 are. Now, someone also asked me a question about, did I take into consideration the pigment when I was, like, from a liquid perspective? So if I've measured out 6 milliliters of water, would I, cut back a little bit on that because of the pigment? I have never done that. I am not aware of anyone else doing that. I don't know if it would be a good idea or not, but I look at it that if, depending on how much pigment you're putting in, depending on the pigment you're using, I guess if you wanted to, but I don't know if I would recommend it, or just say, let it dry. It's going to take longer to set. Let it take longer. If it, this stuff is supposed to sit for an hour. These aren't very thick. I will let these sit for an hour before I take them out of the mold. I just figure there's got to be a reason the company is saying let them sit for an hour before you take them out of the mold. If it were intricate or there were some, fine spots on the mold, I definitely am going to let it sit for an hour, if not longer. The depth of a mold, how big it is again going to cause me to think twice about how long I want it to set. I don't want my pieces breaking. I want to know they are set before I take them out of the mold. And especially so when I'm working with ornaments and we've got this little hole here, you don't want that breaking because you've taken it out of the mold too soon. So I'm I err on the side of let's let it sit for the length of time it needs to before I take it out of the mold. So you do it, as Tim Holtz says, you do you. However, just it's something to keep in mind because you don't want to be breaking pieces. And I guess if you break a few pieces and it doesn't matter because you're just playing fair, but I think you may get to the point where it's just not worth it to do it. Anyways, we have to let these sit now. When these are set, we will come back, but I am seeing a pretty definiteness of color right now as to where my preference would lie with these water pigments and using them in the mixed mold. I'll see you in a bit. Well, test time is up. We are ready to look at the different colors that we've gotten from our different pigments to see which one you would be interested in. I did notice while these were setting up that both the Temu pigment and the Stampin' Up, that there was some bubble formation, like tiny, almost like micro bubbles on the top of these pieces. And I got to see those using my other glasses, whereas the Jdiction and the mixed mold were smooth. So to me, that doesn't make much of a difference because I know I can sand my pieces down when, they come out of the mold. So that's not a big deal, but I just thought I would point that out. So I don't know, again, I don't know what's in any of these pigments to know whether there's some sort of chemical reaction that's happening. I just thought I would mention it. Now, in having done this particular test, I'm just going to move things around a little bit here so that we can see things better. I think it's going to depend on how vibrant you want your pieces to be to determine what colorant you want to use. I also know from taking pieces out of molds that as they dry out, they will get darker. So perhaps what we'll do is when we've taken these out of the mold, fingers crossed, nothing breaks. Again, it doesn't really matter because this is a test. However, it'd be nice if pieces didn't break because maybe I can use them for something else. We can, let them sit for a day, come back to them even in 12 hours and see, if the color has done anything really fussy and whatnot. Now I'm just going to pull back because you will already have seen the video that I did. But this is my turtle now. This is the one that I did, and I had used the Stampin' Up stamping ink to create it, to do the coloring. And this is the shade of it now, and this is how many days later? I want to say 3, but I might be pushing that. Anyway, I just wanted you to see the intensity of these colors as the piece dries. So that's something to keep in mind too, that depending on what pigment you're using, if you're looking for a light blue, then maybe the mixed mold's the color to go with. If you're looking for something that's really vibrant or very dark, and this turned out darker, I'm going to cover this with gloss to see if I can't pull out, sort of soften it up a bit. I don't know if that's going to work, but that's my plan. This is the underside of it, which is, a huge difference between the top. Right? And it basically started to change color as soon as I took it out of the mold. And it's got to be because it's hitting the air and because it's starting to dry itself out. So maybe that's something we do, is we wait and see. So let's just take the easy ones out first. So this is our mixed mold. Again, 5 drops of every color. So to make this fair. So this is very, very pale. Let's say, just for the sake of doing it, once I've got these out of the mold, I will let these sit, and then in 12 to 24 hours, we'll come back and we'll have a look at them to see if there has been any intensity of color in them. So that is our mixed mold. Our snowman is the Stampin' Up. It's slightly darker. I am expecting, because of what I've been doing, is I am expecting this to get darker, to have it sort of intensify its color as it starts to dry out, because that's what I've been noticing with the other pieces I've done. So we're just going to move these two off to the side. Actually, let's do this a different way. We'll just, oops, switch these around. Always make sure your lids are on things, so if they fall over, you don't get covered in any kind of product. All right. Okay. So this is the water-based pigment from Temu. Let's very carefully get our mouse ears out of this. Okay. So this is the inside of that. That is the outside. So a bit misleading, right? Because we've got this very dark color here, but it is paler. Now again, it's possible that as this starts to set, it will darken up. Now the other thing I have been doing is taking tongue depressors, big sticks, call them what you will, and because I know there's moisture in these and it's got to come out, I've been putting these at basically all my projects just up on one of these wooden sticks so that they've got air to breathe around them. Does it help? I don't know, but I've been doing it anyways. I just feel, I don't know, I like doing it. So I do it. I do me. Okay, here is the resincrete one. So we'll get this out. Now we've sort of tested the resincrete before and noticed that it's a pretty vibrant color as well. Now granted, that's the back of it, right? Okay, so here we are. I'll get this in sight. Let me move my turtle out of the way. Oh, and I have a little tip for you that's totally outside of this, but just food for thought and something to know. Okay, so this is our resincrete. It's, from what I can see, it's kind of splotchy here. We'll see better once it's had time to dry. So this side is very bright, very bright. Will it, sort of come through this side of it as it dries out? Well, time will tell on that. So we have 4 varying results. We have, well, if we were to look at these, and I hope they're all in view. Can you see all of them? There's our mouse head, there's our bell, our snowman, and our heart. So as we can see, well, this is both. That really doesn't need anything underneath it. It's not a very good mold. Okay. So in relevance to the brightness, hands down, I mean, having said that, I don't know if the Stampin' Up is going to, so slowly pull out, a brighter yellow color. I don't know about that. But just looking at them now, I'd say the Jdiction is going to be the brightest product you can use. Now I'm torn a little bit between these two here. This is not as sharp of a yellow as this one is. I don't know. Thoughts? Should we go with the mouse head as right now being a brighter, better version than the Stampin' Up? I think these 3, it goes back to the beginning of my video, doesn't it? Which one of these doesn't belong? I'd say these 3, from a color perspective, the Bria Reese, the mixed mold, if you're wanting something very muted, or you're willing to add a lot of the pigment to get the color you're looking for. Having said that, I will let you go for now, and we will come back in a 12 to 24 hour time frame, and we will look at these again to see, what the colors have done. Have they gotten darker? I can see, like, the Jdiction is getting darker as we sit here. Yeah, I still go that this is going to set up darker as well. And maybe even this one. I'm not sure, the mixed mold, what it's going to do. Anyway, one last thing before I let you go for now, because I don't want to forget. I was doing another experiment, which I will share with you in a future video. But when I took my piece out of the mold, I had noticed that there were some markings on the piece I had done. And lo and behold, you won't be able to see it, but there is the shape of a heart inside this mold. And what I'm thinking has happened somehow, some way, is that I've had a heart, maybe even a silicone mold, inside of this one and had some pressure on it, and it's indented the inside of my mold. I try to be really careful with how I put my molds in my containers, but that's something just to be aware of, that make sure you're not putting heavy pieces or, you know, getting too much weight on your molds. I'm going to have to get some new molds now to do what I want, but I just wanted to mention that to you just in case. You got to be really careful on how you store and or stack your molds, and that lends itself to me that I need to do a better job of layering, because I know some of my containers are quite loaded down. Yeah, quite loaded down. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna come back and we're gonna see any brighter than they are right now. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you soon. Well, here we are. We have gotten to the next day. It's approximately 12 to 15 hours since we left and have come back now to see what the colors have done. I had expectations for sure of the Stampin' Up piece, which is this one here, the snowman, having gotten darker. That does not surprise me at all, because I'm finding that when I work with that product, that it does get more intense as the color, not the color, as the piece dries out. So let's sort of go around the table. I put it on black here so you could see better. I didn't think the blue was quite the right color for this. This is the piece using the Temu water-based pigment. It didn't darken up a whole bunch more, I don't think, than what it was yesterday. I mean, here is what the backside looked like before we took it out of the mold, and this is what the front's looking like. So the color has come up a little bit more, but not, I don't think, a lot. This heart, this is the side that we saw before we took it out of the mold. This is the other side. So it intensified a little bit. Is it splotchy? It's sort of. You'd have to look hard at it, or at least, you know, sort of pay attention. I mean, I can see it here. It may not be coming through the camera, but there are some spots where it's a little lighter. Did that have anything to do with my mixing? Not really sure if it did or not, but it definitely is an intense color. This is the mix to mold, and it hasn't done a lot. It wasn't bright. So this is the other side. It wasn't bright when we took it out, and it didn't really do a lot from a color perspective. I think you'd have to add a lot of this to get an intense color, which is, this is sort of unfortunate. And because it's an ink, I don't know whether or not these would work in resin. It's something that, you know, I can try out at a later date. And then this is the Stampin' Up. And I did expect this to darken up. This is the front surface. So as you can see, that's pretty dull, right? And then this is what has transpired. Or let me see. Is that right? Am I correct on that? I can't remember now. I don't have my mold. I do have my mold handy. So let me just bring that back over here. I just want to... Okay. I had to think about that. So this is the side that was up, because that's how it fits into the mold. And then that is the other side that has intensified, which I knew it would. I've seen it a number of times now working with the Stampin' Up, that it intensifies in color. Doing a piece like this and knowing how it intensifies, and I guess for the other two, no, I probably wouldn't do anything with them, right? Because the color is pretty much the same on both sides, even the same with the mix to mold. the Stampin' Up is the one where you have quite the difference. So I would probably be tempted to sand this down a little bit and decoupage this side of it, or paint it to get it so it's, you know, at least closer to this. If you wanted to, you don't have to. I'm just sort of thinking out loud of the potential for this piece, but I knew it was going to get darker. What have we learned from this? Well, different pigments are definitely going to give you different results. The biggest thing I think it comes down to when you're working with any of these is how intense do you want your color to be. Working with the Jdiction, you're going to want to, you're going to have to play, or you're going to want to do the color slowly when you put it in. How intense do you want it to be? Knowing that it's going to become a fairly intense color, you know, then you have to sort of start judging how much pigment do I put in it. With the Temu stuff, it's given you a nice color. I like it. It's not as bright as I thought it might be, but that's okay. Again, if you want something that isn't in your face from a color perspective, then I could see using that. I mean, it's not, it doesn't look bad. It's just not as intense as the Jdiction resincrete pigment is. We have definitely seen that the mix to mold isn't giving the intensity, and I believe you would have to put a lot of the pigment in order to get the color you want. We did 5 drops for every one of these because I needed to make it a fair test. And the Stampin' Up, as you can see, the intensity has ramped right up for this piece. Again, very intense pigment. I have found that with every piece I've done where I've used the Stampin' Up. I love that it is so pigmented. I love that I can use it in the product. The test for me, depending on the intensity, if I want it really intense, I would use either the resincrete or the Stampin' Up. If I want something more subtle, I would probably use Temu. And the mix to mold, again, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to probably put a lot of pigment in order to get the intensity of the color you want. Would it have been better if we had just done white and then dropped this in and poured it? Maybe. Anyway, I wanted to do this because I had people asking about what is the best product. I think ultimately what it comes down to is how intense do you want your piece to be, and how much product do you want to have to put in a piece to get the coloring that you want. Knowing that the mix to mold or even the Jdiction resincrete is such a pure white color when you mix it up, that's going to have to, do you want it closer to the white? Do you want it not white and you want a color? That's all I've got for you today. I hope you found this helpful. Comment below if there's, you know, one in particular that you like more than the others. Comment if you've used any other products that you have found that have worked really well in regards to coloring. These are the 4 I've got. I think it's a pretty good test. It at least gives some more ideas to people on what they may want to use depending on the intensity of the pieces they want. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for anyone who decides to comment below, either on this video or other videos. I look forward to doing a new video, obviously coming up in the near future. Have I decided on what that is? I have an idea, not 100% sure because there's so many ideas running through my head. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.